Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Level Up with Lev. I am Lev, and today I'm excited because we are starting with the first episode in the second mini season. So one interesting thing about today's episode is that you'll notice I'm wearing two different outfits, and that's because I recorded a portion of this episode last week and the other portion today. And I'm returning because I wanted to add a little bit of context and a little bit more information regarding what I shared last week. So essentially, the overarching idea of this show is to relay what I found to be most helpful and useful in setting myself up for success mentally. And a side note, as I continue to learn and to grow, it gets a little difficult not to present newer material and newer ideas as I progress in my journey, but I feel it's important to remain true to what I needed and what I was thinking at the time during these stages in development. So this second mini season essentially involves understanding myself in a way that empowered me to see the thread of circumstances in my life up to this point and how they shaped me into who I am today. So here are some of the questions that I explored then and continue to explore today. What are the general aspects of myself that inform and shape who I am? What has occurred in my past that makes me feel a certain way or react in a particular manner in the face of certain situations? What are obstacles that I have yet to overcome? Or what controllable aspects of myself can I shift to favor my success? After I've identified one of these aspects, then I ask, is this something I'd like to change? Then, how can I make small, gradual, incremental steps in order to affect the change that I would like to see? Do I have the will, the determination, the drive in order to do what is required to make those changes? So the initial recognition of that thread of circumstances that inform who I am today, in addition to understanding general aspects of myself that cause me to act in a certain way in the face of different situations, both led me to become much more curious about what I could do perhaps now and in the future in order to reshape myself and become the version of myself that I'd like to become. And so naturally, I became much more interested in psychology, which helps me to understand myself and why I do the things that I do, why I think the way that I think, who I am, what aspects of myself are malleable enough in order for me to shape them and further lead to my success. So I look at that relation between my past and my present in a similar manner by focusing on how my present can lead to my future. So I monitor my attitudes, my behaviors, and my actions in the present in order to assess how they will affect my future. I reflect on the past adjustments that I've already made in order to course correct as needed. So I'm monitoring my behavior in the present, reflecting, but also looking ahead. And so this involves keeping a close eye on myself, on my attitudes, my behaviors, and holding myself to a high internal standard. I act in ways now that will lead to a desirable future for myself because I understood how that thread from the past informed the present and how that thread will similarly continue on into the future. So with that, I actually have to run and get ready for a camping trip. So in the meantime, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Gryffindor Wizard Lev, and I'll let him take over. I recorded last week's portion of this episode during the week of Halloween. Insert cool transition if I'm able to figure out how to do that. Bye. Pardon that, just had to style on him real quick. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Level Up with Lev. Today we are diving into mini season 2, and in this section I want to discuss understanding myself. So this comes after mini season 1, where I discussed some character traits and attributes that I wanted to work on in order to improve myself in one way or another. And so I think that this provides a smooth transition from the first mini season because the information contained in the first mini season provided this perspective shift, this paradigm shift that helped to facilitate the future growth and change that came thereafter. So it's starting to get darker here. I want to try to get through this episode as quickly as I can. So I just want to share the different concepts that will be coming up in this mini season. So that involves understanding my personal story, which is what I'll be talking about today, personality, learning, bandwidth and capacity, and influences. So there aren't too many concepts that will be covered in this section, but they're all extremely important when it comes to my journey of growth and development. So with all that said, let's go ahead and start talking about what it means to understand my personal story. And just to provide a little caveat, I won't be sharing all of the details from my childhood and my background that led me to where I am today, but I want to discuss conceptually why I think it's important to understand your personal story. So understanding my story and my past will inform my present, and in a similar manner, our present informs our future. So in short, who we are today is fundamentally a result of the culmination of experiences that we've experienced thus far. Now, this is simple and obvious enough. I think that's relatively straightforward. However, the issue arises when our past experiences prevent us from growing or operating in ways that facilitate our growth and attaining the things that we would like to attain. This can manifest in attitudes, behaviors, and ways of thinking. And so for me, I wanted to do my best to recognize these patterns so that they don't carry on into my future. I wanted to break free and continue along my path towards future Lev, which is my specified ideal future self. And so the beautiful thing about this is that through understanding our past and how we've come to be who we are today, by analyzing our experiences and understanding our attitudes and beliefs and ways of thinking, we can recognize some of these patterns and shift and adjust them in ways that we desire. We have the capacity to grow and to improve. So let's do it. And so I wanted to understand my story in a way that enabled me to understand who I am and why. And perhaps once you get this understanding, you're able to come to realizations like, oh, I do such and such because that was the example that I had growing up from my parents. And stop. I wanted to take a pause here, because what I'm about to say is very, very crucial. Now, when it comes to understanding your personal story, there may be some things that you don't like. And importantly, this is not about placing blame on others. This isn't about blaming your parents or blaming this situation or that situation for why you are the way that you are or why you respond to certain events the way that you do. This is about understanding yourself and placing the information in your hands. That way you can improve in different ways by understanding these patterns. All right, and with that disclaimer out of the way, we can continue. So very importantly, once you receive that information and understand your personal story in a way that enables you to understand yourself, it can't stop there. From this point of initial understanding, in my experience at least, it then continues as follows. I understand this particular event or experience being the root cause of a particular pattern in my life in terms of my attitude or my behaviors or my ways of thinking. Is this beneficial for me and my future? Do I feel comfortable acting this way in the future? Or do I want to change this pattern? How can I adjust my behaviors in order to maximize the likelihood that I reach my specified ideal? And then from there lies the work required to adjust the behaviors in one way, shape, or form to grow and develop in the way that you would like to. Pardon that conceptual approach to this conversation. My hope and my goal is that this would be a more relatable way to relay this information to others, especially since we all have such different lives with unique circumstances and experiences. So naturally, the next question would be, how do you do this? And one answer would be through deep introspection. Some individuals, like myself, are very introspective and they like to think about a lot of different things. And some of us aren't so introspective, and that's fine. And I will say that even if you are deeply introspective, it's always helpful to talk to someone else about it to get a second or third or fourth opinion about these things. And so here is a natural plug for the professionals who do something like this for a living, like psychologists and other mental health professionals, particularly if you feel that something from your past is holding you back in some way, shape, or form. If you feel that you want to grow, but you're finding yourself stuck and held back by some sort of internal blockage, wouldn't you want to clear that up? Talk it out. Work it out. The important thing is to stop being held back and getting in your own way. This was at least the information that I needed in order to resolve some of those prior blockages. Because once you clear these blockages up, you gain a certain internal power and freedom that is yours and yours alone. And so for certain individuals, this may just be relatively minor. But for other individuals, this might be a form of a healing process. And an important note about the healing process in general is that not only do you benefit from it, but everyone around you that you interact with benefits from it as well. And so now I'll briefly share a few example areas from my life in which this was incredibly helpful. Very broadly speaking, I was able to understand how different experiences from my childhood may have related to behaviors that I engaged in my teen years and my early 20s. So moving beyond just general patterns of behavior in my life, it also was specifically related to relationships that I had in my life, romantic or otherwise. And so it really helped me to analyze how I show up for other people. So understanding how these early experiences shaped my later experiences in life, I was able to improve the ways that I interact with others, both in my communication styles and forms of attachment. It also helped me understand ties to self-regulation. And so now for the overall importance of this concept. So looking back at our past and understanding our story up to this point enables us to understand cycles that may prevent us from growing, improving, and acting in a functional way, which includes having healthier attitudes and behaviors in life. And so when we understand these cycles, we're in a more empowered position to identify how we can shift and alter our behaviors and attitudes in the future. And so I want to relay the importance of not simply understanding our story, but receiving the information that enables us to act on it in the future, because the acting is the most important part. It's a very conscious process. So understanding and disentangling how our past has affected our present, we can then take the pen and write our own stories for our future by shifting our attitudes and behaviors in the present to help us reach a future that we desire. So again, the focus is on what is actionable, and that is the most valuable lens that I use when I approach growth and development. So I know that this is a very big concept and I only discussed it at a superficial level, but I hope I relayed the importance of understanding your personal story. That way you can write a better future. So I just want to say thank you for listening today. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, like it, comment down below, let me know what you think, and I'll talk to you in next week's episode.